Hello everyone and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we'll be taking a look at the fourth wave of Power Rangers Legacy Collection figures. This wave contains Power Rangers Dino Thunder Red Ranger and Blue Ranger, as well as Power Rangers Zeo Gold Ranger and Green Ranger. Now there's probably, as most of you are aware, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the paint job of the Gold Ranger. We'll get to that in a minute. But this wave technically is also supposed to have a fifth figure with the Zeo Yellow Ranger, as you can see here on the back. But as far as I know, she is not in this case assortment. When I found these at Target the other day, there were 6 on the pegs. I assume they had just put out a new case. It was one of each of these, and then 3 Gold Rangers. So I assume they think Gold Ranger is going to be the most popular from the wave, which is kind of hysterical given the controversy. Again, we'll get there in a minute. So that might come back and really bite him in the butt. We'll have to wait and see how that shakes out. But yes, 3 Gold Rangers and then 1 of each of these. Not sure why they decided to do that. I guess if it's a case of 6, they don't really have the opportunity to do 2 of all of these, which is what I would probably do. But if you would figure the Yellow Ranger would be put back in, I could easily see 1 of each and then a second gold if you think he's going to be most popular. But whatever. From what I understand, the female figures, because they were peg warming with all the previous waves, they decided to just throw out boys for now. And then when they do a case refresh later on, they'll slide the girls back in, probably in place of one of these extra Gold Rangers. So we'll see how that goes. But taking a quick look at the packaging, it's pretty much what we've come to expect from the Legacy Collection packaging. I think the packaging has always been really good. I like the black with the lightning bolt that's correspondent to the color of the Ranger inside. You get the Build-A-Figure pieces, obviously, for Zeo Green. You get part of the Zeo Megazord here. For the 2 Dino Thunder Rangers, you get a piece of that Megazord. Gold Ranger does not come with any Build-A-Figure pieces. He comes with this Power Staff, Zeo Gold Power Staff, whatever it's technically called. Looking on the back here, you can see the full makeup of the figure and which piece comes with each Ranger. And then again, it shows you the 5 Rangers from this wave. Dino Thunder, same deal. You can see the Megazord there on the back. And then the 5 Dino Thunder Rangers. I believe these... I don't even think the White Ranger's in the next wave. I believe the next wave, Wave 5, is going to be these 2 Dino Thunder, and then 1, 2, 3 from Zeo. So I think White Ranger's actually in Wave 6. So if you want that extra leg of this Thunder Megazord, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, unfortunately. But that's pretty cool. Like I said, I like the packaging. I really do enjoy the packaging for this line. I think they've done a great job with that. I love the giant helmet of the Ranger. And then I said the colored lightning that corresponds. I think they did a pretty good job with that. But that's pretty much it for the packaging here. Let's go ahead and get them all out of the packaging, and we'll take a closer look. Alright, so here are the 4 figures out of the packaging. Real quick, I'm going to go over the Build-A-Figure pieces they come with, just to kind of get them out of the way. Up first here, you have the kind of head and torso for the Zeo Megazord that comes with Zeo Green. Head is on a ball joint. Obviously, there's going to be ball joints in the shoulders and the hips. But taking a quick look, I think they did a pretty decent job with the head sculpt there. The paint's pretty nice. The face looks good. He's kind of making a weird, like, pursed lips, mouth thing that's going on. I'm not really sure why they chose that, but overall, I still think it looks pretty good. You can see the molding in that crest on his forehead. No paint on the back. Here is the wings of the Phoenix, kind of on the back there. Not too bad for the Sphinx head. And then you have the bull head. Obviously, it would have been nice if the eyes of the bull were painted like the eyes of the Sphinx. I think I can get beyond that personally, but sure, it would have been nice if they were also painted red. Addressing the... I don't know. I will say that the mustard color that everyone was talking about in those pictures, in person, I do not think it's as bad as that. I think those pictures really made it look worse than it is in person. It's not really gold. I will say it's not gold. I think someone online said butterscotch, and I think that's kind of a good description for the coloring. it's one of those deals where the more you stare at it, the more your brain kind of normalizes it and it doesn't look as bad over time. And I don't know if that's just a trick I want to play on myself or if that's true just because I get used to it or whatever the circumstance. Obviously, the beautiful gold paint would be preferable. I would still absolutely like to have that. I think over time, personally, I can deal with it and I can get beyond it. I mean, I'm not saying I forgive it, you know, and these figures are still full price, even though that paint did not get applied. But I think over time, my mind can reconcile it. I think it's really just one of those deals where if this is how they were shown to us originally, people would not have as much of a problem. Because I think, like I said, over time, they don't look terrible. But when you see that prototype with that beautiful gold paint on it, and that was your standard, and then at the last minute they do a bait and switch, I feel like that's why everyone's upset, because it feels like you were lied to. I think if this is what you saw from the beginning, and you were always used to this, I don't think people would have that much of a problem with it. I think they could reconcile it a lot better. So it's really going to be up to you personally whether you can deal with the, you know, tannish butterscotch color, or if you need the gold paint. I know some people have been customizing their own. I guess that's an option. I, for one, am not someone who has any kind of artistic ability, so I know that I would probably make the figures look terrible if I tried it myself. But if it's something you know how to do and you want to do it, by all means, you know. But it isn't something you should have to do. I mean, the figures should come finished. They shouldn't have to be customized by every person who buys their own. I'm not saying you can't. Obviously, if that's something you like to do and you like to enhance your figures and add paint apps, by all means, enjoy. But I think figures are always going to be missing paint apps. I mean, you see it. Obviously, this is a very dramatic case with these figures, especially the Gold Ranger. But you see it in Transformers too. There are places where paint apps could be that are left off, and it's always a cost-cutting measure. And I don't want to harp on this for the whole review. I really want to just look at the figures as they are, not what they could be. But I figured I had to address it because it's kind of become a big thing on the internet, and I had to at least address it, and now I'm going to move past it. So the paint thing, it's out there. I'm going to move on. As a figure, I think this looks okay. I think, like I said, obviously it could be painted better, but I think overall for detail, I think the head sculpt looks good. Obviously, it's going to be easier to make a better judgment when I have some arms and legs to go with the guy, but for what I have right here, not too terrible. Very nice molded in detail, if nothing else. Could always use more paint, but I feel like everything could always use more paint. So taking a look at the two arm pieces that come with the red and blue Dino Thunder Rangers, I think they work pretty well. I think the original toy, like the actual Megazord, had these painted silver, if I'm recalling correctly. But I can understand why that didn't happen for this, and quite honestly, it doesn't bother me. I mean, sure, more paint would always be great, but it doesn't really bother me that they're not painted. The silver and kind of gold paint up here looks pretty good. Obviously, that's not repeated on the back. But you have a ball joint in here, which is what's going to connect to the torso. You have this swivel here. You have 90 degrees in the elbow. So, pretty decent arm articulation. Obviously, it would be great to have like a bicep swivel, but the Megazord Build-A-Figures don't usually have as much articulation as these figures do. I think that the Triceratops Zord here actually looks pretty good. I think the horns look nice. I love the red painted for the eye. Obviously, the mouth does not open. But again, you have this same movement here in the shoulder. You have 90 degrees, pretty much. Not quite 90 degrees, but pretty much in the elbow. So I think that looks pretty good. I like the little molded feet. That they did a nice job with that. I appreciate that. It's kind of fun. This almost looks like the tail could come off, but I don't believe it can. It's a solid piece there. So yeah, I'd say I think these work perfectly well. I mean, sure, there could be more paint, but I don't think it's too jarring for what we get here. So not too bad. So that's it for the Build-A-Figure pieces. Getting into these individually, I'll look at the two Dino Thunder guys first, I guess, because they're pretty similar in design. Obviously, you can see the silver there on the belt buckle. You have the really nice gold detailed symbols on the chest. I think they did a really nice job with those. I love the white outline around the visors for the helmets. I think the silver paint on the T-Rex's helmet is pretty good. T-Rex. Triceratops. This is the T-Rex. The Triceratops horns, I think, are pretty nicely detailed and painted there. see if I can get a little bit closer. Yeah, you have a little bit of black for the eyes, silver, the white outline. Obviously, the white painted all down the sides, at the top here, down the sides of the legs. And yeah, you have the little holes for the joints, but it's not too jarring. The hips on my blue Dino Thunder are a little loose, and that's kind of a bummer, but it's not altogether too terrible. They're just a little bit looser than normal. The articulation points, I believe they have all the same as the original past waves, but I did notice that there is no longer a boot cuff swivel, which I believe we did have before. Otherwise, I think everything else is pretty much the same. You have the shoulder in and out all the way around. You have the bicep swivel. You have the two joints in the shoulder. Now, the top joint doesn't seem like it bends all that much anymore. You can kind of see it just does that. The bottom one still works pretty good. And then you have the normal kind of figure art wrists. It's a little weird on the Dino Thunder guys that the wrists are white, because I don't believe that it's like anything like that in the show costumes. Don't actually have that. I think it's just because I guess all the joints are white and they didn't feel like molding new joints in different colors. So I'm assuming that was a cost-cutting measure, and it's a little jarring. It's not terrible, but it's a little bit of a bummer. I would have preferred that to be blue and then red on him. You can see that we did get a little bit of gold paint here on the wrists, and that matches the gold paint used on the chest and also around the collar. The only place where it's actually the lighter tannish color, the boot cuff and the belt. So these guys didn't lose too much in the way of gold paint. And that's why I think for these guys it's not that big a deal. I also feel like the gold isn't super prominent in these suits like it is in the Zeo suits, or at least it's definitely more prominent in the Zeo suits. So I feel like it doesn't bother me so much. And they did a really nice job with the chest. I think the symbol on the chest really came out beautiful, even when you kind of crunch. I mean, obviously, if you crunch all the way down, it's going to get hidden. There's nothing you can do about that. But when you kind of extend it, I think it looks pretty good. I don't really have any problems with that. I'm trying to think. I was kind of in the middle of articulation here, but the hips can go out to the side, swivel in the thigh, double joint in the knee, as per usual. And then, like I said, no boot cuff, but you do have the in and out for the ankle as well as the side-to-side swivel. So, I mean, if it's missing 1 or 2 points from the past waves, it's not super terrible. I definitely think it still works. And they still feel pretty solid. I think, like I said, this top joint I feel like is not as articulated in the elbow. And my hips are a little loose, but that could be very specific to mine. Both of these guys come with the same gun. Let me see if I can get close here. Now you can see it's mostly black. And it's black that bleeds into a really dark navy blue. So it's almost kind of, especially on camera, it's kind of hard to see where it stops. You can see here and a little bit up there is the navy blue, but they definitely kind of blend into each other. Now the silver up here is this kind of really flimsy piece, which is a shame because it came out of the packaging a little bent. It's not terrible. And it's nicely painted as far as the silver goes, which I appreciate. And then you have the gold tips here painted. So there's a decent amount of paint here. Of course, there could be more. I mean, obviously there's a symbol there on the hilt. Or the, I guess, handle of the gun is the word I should use. And I think this is supposed to be red, this kind of jewel in the center here. But for a weapon, I think there's a decent amount of paint on this. I wish this was a more solid plastic, but what are you going to do? You can go ahead and pop it into his hand. I get this set. There we go. Zoom out here. And I'm not great at posing figures, but you can wield the gun very easily. And then, of course, it can fit into the holster, as shown here for red. And they have that slit so that the silver part can fit through the slit. Take a little bit closer look at red here. Really nice. I love the white trim around the visor. That's like a big deal to me. I think that looks really good. Oh, the morphers. I forgot to show the morphers. Let me see if I can get in closer so you can actually see it. Now, they are molded to the right dinosaur. And I'll show you blues real quick. You can see, I know it's kind of hard to see. Whoops. Especially if I knock the camera over. You can see, like, there is a Triceratops horn right there where my nail is. And then for the T-Rex, you can see, and I'm doing them upside down, probably help if I do it the right angle, but... So the morphers are molded correctly, but they're all just one solid black, which is kind of a bummer. I didn't expect it to be, like, ridiculously intricately painted, but if this could have been painted gold the same as the cuff, I mean, you're kind of already here painting the cuff. I think I'd rather this be painted gold instead of black. But the detail is there. So if you are someone who likes to customize and you wanted to paint them, the detail is there. But again, it would be nice if they came already painted. But overall, I think the two Dino Thunder Rangers looked good. I really do. I think the gold on the collar, the chest, and the wrists looks really great. You know, the boot cuff and the belt is that kind of like, you know, goldish plastic, tannish, goldish plastic, not painted gold. But I still think they did a nice job with these. I mean, I really like these suits. They've always been kind of a favorite of mine. I've really liked the Dino Thunder designs. The gun that comes with as the accessory is not bad. I mean, I would have preferred their individual weapons, but that's an argument for another day, so I won't get into that here. But yeah, overall, I think these two are pretty solid. The only thing I really have to complain about, the white wrist joint, I wish was their individual colors. It would blend in better. And again, the lack of paint on the boot cuffs, but that doesn't bother me all that much. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job with these two, and I definitely recommend these two. I think they're pretty great. Alright, so now on to these two. We'll put him to the back, and we'll look at Green first. Green, I think, looks pretty good. I think they did a pretty good job. I love, again, the gold on the chest and around the collar. Looks great. Again, you have gold around the wrist. The only place you don't get it is the glove cuff, boot cuff, and the belt. But I think it is one of those deals where after a while they kind of start to blend together. I mean, obviously this gold paint is really sharp and nice, but I think after a time they're close enough that you can start to, your brain kind of starts to rectify it for you, or reconcile it, for lack of a better term. And again, I'm not making apologies, you know, it would have been obviously much better to get gold paint, but I think over time my mind doesn't start to mind it as much. So I think it looks pretty good. I mean, the figure design looks great. I think all the molded in detail is there. The helmet looks good. All the articulation points are there. You know, head's on a ball joint. It can also move up and down, side to side. Shoulder joint, biceps swivel, 2 joints in the elbow. We've gone over this. So yeah, I think it's a good looking figure. Obviously, I would rather it was all the gold parts were painted gold. But again, I think if we were just shown them like this from the beginning, I don't think anyone would have a problem. I definitely think, and again, I'm sure it stems from the fact that there's not as much gold on the green Zeo as there is on the gold Ranger. So this guy can get away with it more. I feel like it's not as big a deal. He does come with these 2 accessories. He has this like shortened version of the sword, which has some nice gold paint on it, surprisingly. See if I can get this to focus. So I guess, I mean, I have it in the holster like that. I guess you could put it down if you'd rather. I'm not really sure which way it's supposed to go, but I have a feeling it's supposed to be like this. So that's how I have it. Of course, he can wield it. It looks a little weird to wield it in its shortened form, but there is no extended version included, so it is what it is. Then you have this gun, which I think looks pretty good. A little bit of red and black paint on there, nice molded in detail. He can wield this very easily as well. Pop that in his hand. See if I can bend the wrist. There we go. So yeah, I think the gun works. The gun works really well. The sword, you know, is wielded well enough, but it's not an amazing accessory. It's kind of like when the Mighty Morphin Rangers came with the folded up blade blaster. It's just not that exciting to wield on its own. But they fit in the holsters well enough, and they look good if you're just going to display them like that. take this out, pop this back in here. So yeah, overall, I really do like the look of Zeo Green. I think it works. I think the gold on the chest and the wrists pop, while at the same time, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's like, it makes it obvious that the other parts aren't painted gold, but it also kind of elevates the other parts. Almost like, by looking at these, it can almost trick your brain into thinking that they're all painted gold. I know I'm explaining that really weird, and I'm doing a bad job of explaining it, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it works together. I don't know, it's a weird way. But I think Zeo Green looks good. Now, coming to the Gold Ranger. Obviously, this is a bummer. This is not painted gold. Everyone thought in the original pictures that the trim on the helmet was still gold, but the rest of this was not. It's not. The trim on the helmet is the same, butterscotch color that's throughout the rest of the figure. The King Staff or Power Staff, whatever you'd like to call it, actually is nicely detailed. And it's painted on both sides, which I appreciate. The red looks sharp. The silver looks good. You have the button here on the front. Silver paint down here. It's painted nicely. It's just they used the wrong color paint. And again, I really think if they would have from day one said, here's your Gold Ranger figure, everyone would have been like, hey, that looks great. Because it's a nice looking figure. As far as the detail, the articulation points, the design, it looks like the Gold Ranger, with the exception that it's not fancy gold paint. So it's really a shame, and I think Bandai really just screwed themselves by, in all the test photos promising the really beautiful gold paint, and then at the last minute giving us this. I will say, it's not as bad mustard gold as those first initial pictures made it look. At least in person, I don't think it is. In my opinion, that, like, I've heard some people use the term butterscotch, and I think that's kind of a perfect color as far as this goes. It really does kind of look like that. The other thing that's a little weird with the shield, it looks fine like this, but then if you like ab crunch, it kind of stops all fitting together perfectly. It's not doing it as much anymore. Kind of, there you go, you can kind of see it. So you can kind of manipulate it back in place. It's a softer plastic. It's not super malleable, but it's malleable enough that it needs to be. You can tell that these parts were painted, and around the collar was painted. And I'm assuming they just, once they had to commit to this, because I think this is obviously what drove everything. I really think this big shield is what drove them to cheap out on the paint. And then once they decided to, for uniformity's sake, they decided to paint the other parts. Because it would look weird if like just this and this was painted gold instead of the same color to match. So I can understand why they wanted to keep it for consistency's sake. But it is kind of a bummer. And I understand why people are mad. And unfortunately, my shoulder on mine is a little loose, which is kind of a bummer. But I think that's a one-off for this figure. I don't know. I feel like at this point I'm just going to keep saying the same things about the paint over and over again, and I do not want to keep doing that because I don't want to harp on it. Everyone out there who is interested in these figures knows the debate, and it either bothers you or it doesn't. I completely understand why it would bother you. It did bother me at first very much. It was kind of just really depressing and kind of a shame because we had been shown such a beautiful gold painted figure. And then that was the standard that was set. And we didn't force that on them. That was the standard they set. And then at the last minute, we got this. I really do believe if we had just been shown this from the beginning, everyone would have said, oh, hey, that looks nice. Could be painted really gold, but I still think it looks nice. But that's not what happened. So if you can get past the fact that it's not shiny gold paint, I still think it's a good figure. I think the articulation points are there. The accessory is nice. The molded in detail. It's a good representation of the Gold Ranger. It's just not painted a shiny gold. So it's really going to be up to you. And I don't think any viewpoint is bad. If you're okay with it and you think, oh, I'm going to just be okay with it. I still think it's a nice representation of the figure. Enjoy it. It's going to be everywhere for you to find because it's 3 in the case. So this should be the easily most easily found Ranger in the whole case assortment. If you're someone who is really upset about the paint job, understandably, and you say, I want to vote with my wallet and I want to skip this guy to stick it to Bandai, another perfectly viable option. So I can see both sides. I decided to get it, one, for review purposes. I wanted to show you guys how it stacks up, review it for you guys so you can actually take a look a little bit more hands-on than just the pictures we've seen on Instagram. Because I do think the color that we have here is better than what showed up in that picture. I think that picture made it look 10 times worse, but it's still not the beautiful gold we were promised. So I completely understand. If you want to, vote with your wallet and say you're not okay with this and not buy it, I get it. I really do. I do think that the 2 Dino Thunder figures are absolutely worth picking up because I really do think they are absolutely fantastic. And I mean, I could just be a little bit biased with the suits because I really love those Dino Thunder suits. Plus the fact that we're going to get black and white and yellow, so we'll have a nice full team for Dino Thunder. I definitely think these 2 are worth picking up. I would also make a case for Zeo Green. I think he looks good. He's got a decent amount of gold paint on him. He looks nice. I can let the glove and boot cuffs go. That's just me personally. I can understand how some people couldn't. This wave is very much going to be a your mileage will vary because it's all about how upset you are personally with how these turned out. And I completely understand everyone's viewpoints. I really do. I caved because I have no self-control and I wanted to review them for you guys, so I picked them up. But I would say absolutely these 2 are definitely worth it. I think the Dino Thunder ones are great. I don't really have many problems with them. The Zeo is very much going to be what you can put up with personally. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd like to hear your opinions. Where do you guys fall on the Gold Ranger, Zeo Green? What do you guys think? And let me know what you think about Dino Thunder as well. I'd like to hear your opinion. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like and share this video, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at Wave 4 for the Power Rangers Legacy collection of figures. Zeo Gold, quote-unquote, Zeo Green, and a Dino Thunder Red and Blue. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching.